Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Today we are going to travel through the eyes of Sugreeva towards south. And when Bhagwan Ram asked Sugreeva, how does he know everything about the earth? Sugriva said that he was running away from Vali to save his own life. And so he went to all parts of the world. And later on, Bhagwan Ram chose him because he had seen the world to help him find Sita. So today we're going to travel through the eyes of Sugriva with the help of Sri Nilesh Oak, who is a very good friend and a supporter and also a great scholar himself, to take us through that journey. So welcome, Nileshji.
Namaskar, Aditya ji. All
So
right, we are going to go in the south direction this
south
time.
direction.
Yeah, and just like last time, we went in the east
East.
direction. Yeah, and I called it from India to Andes.
Andes.
Today, it will be from India to Antarctica.
Wow.
Okay, so it cannot be coincidence, but it will look like a coincidence. So India to Andes, India to Antarctica, India to Alps, and India to Arctic. All A's.
All A's.
Okay, today we will just do the south direction. Very important direction because Sugriv asked Vanara armies to go in all four directions, and one of the reason was because Ravana had a huge empire around the world, and so in principle Ravana could have kept Sita anywhere. So that was a possibility. However, there, what you can say, the propensity or a high probability was definitely in the south direction with respect to India or with respect to Kishkinda, because that's where that's the direction Ravana had taken. That's where Ravana's Lanka was. And so the south, the search party that was headed in the south direction was very critical. I mean, all the hopes in a way were on them that they will find Sita.
Even it's incorrect to connect, but many of the recent plane crashes which
Mm,
vanished, the entire search was so focused on the south. And the for me the interesting part was when they were searching the ocean in the
mm,
south direction. Oceans were very violent,
mm,
and so big ships, when they were traveling to the south to search
mm,
for the missing plane, they found deep treasures of huge ships sunken,
mm, mm.
and some of them they couldn't identify which era they belonged to.
Interesting.
And this was a multi, hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on it. Very expensive equipment was used. In
Mm,
fact, a lot of submarines were used extensively. And the last landmass that they could connect was Antarctica and Australia.
mm,
And between the two continents, they had the search. So it
mm.
makes it very interesting. So if
Yeah.
we can get it started now.
All right. So let me start sharing the presentation. And so what it does is it gives us an anchor, so the viewers can also relate to what we might be looking at. All right. So this time we are going in the southern direction. So from India to Antarctica. Again, important to remember that we are talking of the geographical landscape, both the oceans, the land, and the ocean levels, not of today, but going back to 14,000 years. Okay. And at that time, the sea levels were significantly lower, like 120 to 140 meters. And Aditya ji, you love to multiply in the foot, for the benefit of American audience, you can say, so that's like, say, like a 300, 400 feet below the sea levels today. Okay, so lot more landmass was available. So with that, let's go around. So quickly, this is just a repeat slide from last time. So Sugriva has divided the Vanara search parties into four groups, and he's sending all of them in different directions. Okay, so last time we looked at India to Andes. This time we look at south, going in the south direction, India to Antarctica. Next time we look at going in the west direction, and after that going in the north direction. So if you look at the world map today, what we are focusing on is what I'm highlighting here. Okay, and so from central India, we're going all the way down to Antarctica. Okay, now what we are going to find is there are some descriptions that occur in Valmiki Ramayana, and whereas we can identify a decent location, right now there is no significant landmass, but we can identify a decent location for Ravana's Lanka, and we can also identify uh, Antarctica. It is called Yamapuri, Yama's abode in Valmiki Ramayana. There are many descriptions which are not very easy to identify as to what specific landmass that might be referring to. So just to give an example, just from what we can even see. So this is where the Antarctica begins. But look at this landmass right now. So what you see in the map, this is today's map. Actually, this is like seeing the land below the ocean. At some point this was above the ocean, but right now it's below the ocean. So this is one place. There are other places here. There could be many other places which have completely disappeared because of the pure destruction of a landmass. So even not just that it has gone below the water level. So there are some descriptions that we will find which could be related to this area. They could relate to parts of Africa. Who knows, they might relate to parts of Australia. So there are some unknowns in this direction. Quickly, these are my books. Only for related to what we are discussing today, this Sugreeva, the book that is relevant if you are in India is that 12,200 BCE. And if you are outside India, then the book title is Historic Ram. Okay, that's what you want to get it. Quickly, I will also mention that I get, Aditya ji, I get so many questions, and that's good thing, absolutely good thing. But one of the thing is number of those questions are absolutely frequently asked questions, and I have answered them many times, and now I don't want to answer them again if I have already answered them sometime. And so what I have there is precisely for that reason I'm just sharing. So anyone who wants to know about more of my work, they should start with this link here at the top, subupublications.com/the authors page in the Nilesh Oak. They will get to see, they can order the books online, but they get to see all the links to my blog, my social media handles, to my YouTube channels, and so on. Then before they ask any question again, through the social media or through email to me, I would encourage them to go to this blog site, WordPress, nileshok.wordpress.com. And even within that, there are 500 plus blog articles, but there is one that they can search using FAQ as a keyword, frequently asked question, and actually go through that list before asking me the question. In fact, I know what is there in that list. So if they ask something and I have already answered, I'm not going to spend my time responding to them in a social media or an email. Okay. And then there's a Facebook page, Twitter handles that you can find at the first one. Therefore, I just showed it. Okay, now some of these slides, Aditya ji, we have also seen when we discussed Ravana's Lanka. Okay, so some of them I'm going to go through a bit faster. So here, beginning in the central India, like from Narmada River, Sugreeva is describing how, what different landmarks to look for as the Vanara party goes in the southern direction. I'm quickly going to come to the last two verses where he's saying, okay, as you go further south, as you cross Kaveri, the area of Kaveri, you are going to come to Malaya mountain, Malayasya Mahojasam. An interesting thing he says there is Drakshata Aditya Sankasham Agastyam Rishi Sattamam. There you will see the Agastya Rishi as bright as the sun. And obviously he's not referring to the human being Agastya Rishi there, but the star Canopus, okay, in the southern direction. And just to tell the Vanara party the location, like how far down in the south in the latitude they need to go. He's saying, okay, you're going to go all the way to the area of a Tamraparni river, which is that river where this arrow ends. Okay. Then he says this is a perfect place for Vanara to jump towards Ravana's Lanka. And there he has these verses. Again, I have done this before, so I'm going to skip through that fast. So there he's saying from there on the top of a Mahindra Parvat, the description in the Valmiki Ramayana can be perfectly seen as a southwest corner of India. Okay, and from there he said, hey, this is a perfect spot to jump towards Lanka. And he describes this area, this particular Mahindra Parvat area, very beautiful area, and so on. Okay, I have also discussed this, like, because from here only you can see as if one leg of Agastya is here and the other leg of Agastya is way up, I mean down in the ocean, and that is referring to Agastya becoming a pole star. The timing comes to again 12,000 BCE, which very much matches with what I have come up with. Okay, quickly I'm going to go through the Ravana's Lanka slides also. We discussed that before. That Sri Lanka, what is today's Sri Lanka, is a name given very recently. It was also known as the Singvala Dweep, and uh, during 14,000 years ago, it was land. It was connected to India, so there was no need for a bridge. Having said that, we also discussed that Sri Lanka could be very much under the control of Ravana, and therefore, it's still quite possible that Ravana might have kept Sita there. The Ashokvan could be still there, or there are many theories, but I just want to bring it to your attention from a purely scientific and empirical perspective that 14,000 years ago, that Sri Lanka was connected to India, the Indian landmass, by land. Okay, so there was no need for a bridge there. Okay, and so let's go through that. And what is some of the evidence that tells us that Sri Lanka would not be Ravana's Lanka? Is the descriptions that we find in numerous of our astronomy text. Okay, multiple times, all our astronomy siddhantas, when the Lanka description comes, it comes as a 0 longitude, 0 latitude, with a prime meridian going through Ujjain and Sthaneshwar, which is Kurukshetra, and so on. So we know where to look for that location. Right now, there is no landmass. Okay, this position will come just east of Malay, based on our current geography. All right, so I want to go further. And just to give you another evidence there, see right now, Aditya where you see this line number 3 is the current Indian land boundary, land and ocean boundary. But as you go back in the past, for example, like more than those 14,000 years ago, actually there was a much more land that was available because of the ocean levels being below. And that was more like this 4. So actually, India kind of land extended further south, much further south than what it is. And they have found the river channels of Tamraparni or this Vaigai river coming here and right into the ocean. These valleys have been tracked, with the modern technology. So that's what exists. Okay. Now, what is interesting is now we are going, let's say, beyond Lanka, beyond Ravana's Lanka. And there are these descriptions on this side, descriptions of many islands, descriptions of oceans, descriptions of the vegetation and whatnot. What it is not exactly clear is where are these places. Okay, it's not very easy to track us for now because so much geography has changed in the sense of water level coming up by 120, 140 meters. And also some of the land masses would have simply either gone below the ocean or simply below the water or simply disappeared. But some locations we can very well narrow it down. For example, the mention of Bhogavati, that is the land of Nivanta Kavach, the Nagas, the type of Nagas. And this is something you would be even much more familiar than me, Aditya. Like this comes into Puranas everywhere. The Patal, Tal, Sutala, Vitala, Talatala, Atala, this Rasatala, they all come. There are different, these Nagas there. And this Nivanta Kavach and Bhogavati comes all the time. Okay. So, for example, now what is interesting is here Sugreeva is mentioning it. Now, if you go to Uttarakanda, Ravana is describing, the Ravana is being described going to Bhogavati, fighting with Nivanta Kavach, not winning. And then, I think there is a Paulastya or some other sage comes and does the Madhyasti, does the truce, between them. And Ravana plays a very smart move. He says, okay, why don't you fight with me? So Nivanta Kavach, he takes help of Nivanta Kavach to go after many other parts of the world. Okay, so that's what we are saying in the south area. Now, what I'm saying is this area could be part of Africa, could be part of South Africa, South America, Australia. These are all possibilities. Not just for Bhogavati, I'm saying, but some of the descriptions that we have seen. In fact, there is enough evidence to think that the Bhogavati possibly is referring to South America, parts of South America. Okay. All right. And how do we know that? Again, we have gone through this, but Ravana's Ravana's connection with the world is to many, many parts, right? He has his forefathers from the mother side coming from Mali, Somali, whatnot, not mother side, but going further, ancestors. So there is possible Africa connections, South America connections. Ravana himself has gone all the way to Himalayas, to Kubera's area, further north of Himalayas. He has control within India, definitely until the Godavari River. And if you go to Uttarakhand, you will see the descriptions of Ravana conquering the Yamapuri, going to Antarctica and this. And there's something very interesting evidence I'm going to share. I don't know if I've shared that with you before, but let me just go fast through this. All right. Now, what is interesting is this is the Antarctica. So let's think of this as the last point. So, Ante Prithivya Dudharsha, very difficult to go. Tata Swarga Jitastita. Okay. And what is this place? He says that is a place of Pitrus, Pitru Loka Sudaruna, very, very difficult place to reach. And he says, Rajadhani Yamasya Esha Kashtena Tamasavruta. From astronomy perspective, they always, at least that time, they believe that if you go to the further now north, then there is extreme darkness. Okay, same thing for extreme south. They also believed that it was extreme darkness, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
6 months of the
6
year
months.
it is true, right? Yeah. So that's why they're saying Esha Kashtena Tamasavruta. And you know what he's saying? Actually, don't he's giving the coordinates of Yamapuri, but he's not asking actually Vanaras to go all the way there. He's in fact saying, don't go there. Shakyam vichetum gantum vana ato gati matam gati. It is not very easy to come back.
Very easy to complete.
for you. Now, the interesting part I want to share is this. This is our current map of Antarctica. And just to give you as a reference point, say, suppose we come from Indian side. Okay. So for say, India is like here. You have to imagine. And if we come straight line from India, that will come something like this. In fact, what might help you is this. I don't know if you can see. This is 75 degree east. The right the longitude.
Yeah.
And India is like 75. Somewhere there, 75, 77, and whatnot. So this line is actually coming from India, so to say. If you go in the other direction, this zero. This is coming from London, UK. The East Greenwich. This is a modern map. The reason I'm mentioning is it's very interesting. So, for example, India's scientific camp on Antarctica today is in this area, right here, where it's kind of coming from close. It doesn't have to be that way. The land is not as big as it looks in the map, but something I want to share with you. Okay, so that's the same land again. I'm showing with a different viewpoint. Now, what is the condition today? Today it is covered with the snow, and people are ice, and people are worried if the whole icebergs melt, then the ocean level will go further up and so on. Okay, now look at the map in the middle. Okay, this is a 15th century map. Okay, now if you remember when we discussed the days of the week, I showed you a map from Sir Oliver Lodge book, 1893, and there was nothing shown in the place of Antarctica.
Yes.
But somewhere there was a map from 15th century. This is okay. I won't go into the details of that map. People can search around. But this is the map of Antarctica that is shown in 15th century. So some people knew about Antarctica, others did not know about Antarctica. And something more interesting, Aditya, and again, I want you, but also viewers to say it, especially if you look at, this is Antarctica, by the way. So it's like going down here, coming out. This is the part of Argentina, like South America here. Okay. And this will be, I don't know what that area is, but anyways, so like this. But here, when you look at this area, notice if you can see these horizontal type of lines.
Right.
Those lines are referring to lines that we show on the map for rivers. Okay. Now in 1500 years, 1500 CE, which is 500 years ago also, what we know is that the Antarctica, from our geology data, that Antarctica was covered with ice. So there is no question of there being rivers at that time. Now the rivers have been improved, now with modern technology, the sonar technology. And based on geology, what we know is the last time Antarctica or portions of Antarctica that was free from ice If you want to see that area, actually there was a time when Antarctica was free from ice. And but to do that, we have to go back to at least 4000 BC,
Mm.
at least 6000 years, which also tells you something, that these maps, or the origin of these maps, goes back to 6000 years,
Correct.
when some portions of Antarctica were free from ice, and actually somebody had reached there and somebody had drawn the maps, and very precisely, very accurate maps, which is kind of amazing. Okay, and there are rivers there right now, and now with go ahead.
If you look at all these maps, it looks
Mm.
like all this information has been copied and represented.
Great point. Absolutely. See, we are very good at predicting. I'm going to, so now you predicted this appears to be copied from somewhere. Okay. And I'm going to show you one map which is copied sort of afterwards. But this map, this map you see here is known as a Piri Reis map. So sometimes it's very difficult to imagine what they are, but just to give you an idea, think of this area as the area of like Brazil. Okay. So here is the land and this is the ocean here, because you see the ships in it. So this is the Brazil, that the protrusion that comes out of the Brazil. These are very old maps. This is 15th century map again. Piri Reis was a Turkish admiral, the Ottoman Empire. And what you just said, that's exactly what he did. Now, this one, what is interesting is if you go below here, so after Brazil is like kind of Argentina, and then it shows in that map Argentina connecting with Antarctica. Okay, so some people knew about Antarctica, just like Sugreeva knew about Antarctica.
Correct.
But even in modern times, they knew about Antarctica. Now, what you just said, that's what he says. So Piri Reis has actually written a part of Ottoman Empire, and he had access to the great libraries of Constantinople or Istanbul then. And that is what he's saying, from 8 Jafarayas. I don't know exactly what that means. Okay, but I think some kind of a map, or some kind of chronicles, plus one Arabic map of Hind, that is referring to India, by the way,
Yeah.
plus newly drawn Portuguese maps. This is discussion happening in the 16th century, 1500 something, plus map of Sindh, Hind, and China, the Chin. Okay, geometrically drawn, plus map of Columbus. Now Columbus, this is, I'm saying 1600, 16th century, 1500 something, so after Columbus. And this Piri Reis, he had extracted and built the accurate and reliable map for the 7 seas. Okay, and this is actually very, very small maps. I don't know if I have a dimensions for it. This is imagine, or I don't know how, but this is imagined to be how Piri Reis looked, with the turban there. This is Captain Cook, the many expeditions that they did. I don't have a dimension, but actually it's pretty small. This map that you are seeing is like this small map, you can easily, like our laptop size, and it's drawn on the deer skin. Okay, on the tanned deer skin. And it's not very clear, but actually that map, whatever was shown, the way Antarctica shown on this map, because this continues, matches with the modern map with some changes. For example, this is the area where it goes and connects with Argentina, Chile, and here it is not connecting today, but that time it is shown as a connected, which possibly means it is based on much older map when
Much
the
lower.
water levels were much lower,
Much lower.
right? Okay. And something interesting, and I think just tell me how much time we have. This is my last slide, but something very, very interesting.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Now, people wonder what has changed from the ice age to today, and there are different theories. Okay, the one theory is what we call plate tectonics. Of course, for the weather there are many complicated cycles. Okay, the astronomy comes into picture. There is something called Milkovich cycle that comes into the picture, right? There are so many factors that come into the picture. The geographical changes come into the picture, and they are intertwined, because some of the things that happen is because of astronomy, but some of the things that also happen because of geographical changes, whether the astronomical position is in the south hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, because we have a lot more land in the north and so on. But what I want to show you interesting is this, and let me try and see if we can take this to the viewers. So
Before you
yeah,
continue, one thing
yeah,
come. A
go
lot
ahead.
of theories about Gondwana land continents
Yeah.
colliding. And personally, I feel, just a normal example.
Hmm.
See, the one of the things where I refute the Big Bang theory is that there is nothing achieved by an explosion ever.
Hmm.
If you explode something in a good place, it just converts into rubble.
Hmm.
So the whole Big Bang theory of that I could never accept that from the logical point of view.
Yeah.
Secondly, I could never accept the theory of continents moving
Hmm.
because in our Vedic scriptures very clearly mentioned Sagar Maharaj's 60,000 sons dug the
Hmm.
earth for that horse.
Hmm.
And they would go to the east where they found the east elephant, and they go to the west, they found the west elephant,
Hmm.
north, and we will talk about it sometime later.
Hmm.
So when they talk about the earth and they talk about continents moving,
Yeah.
just by your maps, it doesn't look like that. It has
Okay.
remained, the oceans have risen, but not the lands have not moved much. What do you
Okay.
say on that?
S- yeah, yeah. No, so no, great question. And what I would say, again, based on the studies that I have done, based on other people's work, and actually, there is a wonderful book. And next time, if you can find a picture, and I'll find the picture too. My good friend of mine, by the way. Okay. It's Raymond Diaz. Raymond Diaz. He's originally from Goa.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and but still based in Goa, by the way. A phenomenal book. Okay, and I think it's available on Amazon. The book to remember is like a TTT,
Mhm.
simple triple T. The teardrop theory,
Ah,
the teardrop theory, and he has done a fabulous job of showing that Gondwana, or whatever the other name for that, the common mass, and how it's separated, and so on and so forth. Now, don't feel surprised that you are saying still, hey, you have not come to terms with that. Do you know how old is that tectonics theory? Not very old, by the way. Okay, the person who proposed it, the name is kind of escaping me right now, but that was like, let's say, not more than 100 years ago. We are talking 1930s. Okay,
correct.
yeah, and but fabulous work. So I am convinced of it, based on my work. But I'm saying fabulous work, but it took a long time. In fact, during his lifetime, people didn't accept. Just like, people, the evidence is so much there for Mahabharata date and Ramayana date, but people fight tooth and nail very dogmatically, and just look focusing on finding some faults or something like this. And that's the nature of scientific development.
Yeah,
But I think we can accelerate things if we can educate people into scientific acumen and logical reasoning. Okay,
correct.
but when that is lost, anyway, so there is, but what I want to show you is that there is a tectonic movement. So he put forward the theory of plate tectonics. Again, Raymond Diaz explains it beautifully. In fact, for my new book that I told you, the brief history of Indian civilization, I have requested Raymond to write me a 2-page summary based on his book that I want to include in my book, because he can make my job easy, just bring it from billions, millions of years down to like 100,000 years ago, and
Yes.
I can take it from there. So plate tectonic is there, but what you're seeing here, Aditya ji, is not plate tectonics. Okay, it's something else. This is known as earth crust displacement. Earth crust displacement. So let's say you have that earth's core at the center, and imagine just like a orange, if you had a skin on the surface which could move, because the surface core is only like, not only, I mean, that's still huge distance, 50 kilometers or so. I mean, it changes from place to place, but it is only 50 kilometer thick, once we start digging the earth, so to say. And by the time you get there, it becomes semi soft and whatnot. So that's the earth's core. But what if, forget the plate tectonics, that's a different issue. But what if this skin can roll over that main core? And that is the theory behind this earth crust displacement. Now, remember, plate tectonics took a long time for people to accept. Even there are some people today who will not accept. I mean, you are not accepting it, for example, as a one person, but even in the
Yes.
scientific circles, there are some people. But the earth crust displacement, now there are people against it. But I will tell you, I mean, I have studied the work of Charles Hapgood. This is a work of Charles Hapgood. He was a professor of history at MIT. And he has done an extremely meticulous work. And I feel convinced, of course, he can be wrong, I can be wrong, that with time and with more evidence, this will get further validated. But right now, there is the evidence both from the north and south side that supports it. But the one point I wanted to tell you, and we can stop there, which is for the North America and why North America was covered under ice. See, where there is the Charles Hapgood puts it very nicely. He says there is also ice age going on right now. The only difference is, so he said, oh, well, is that right? I thought the ice age was, people say ice age was gone. No more ice age. He says, yeah, there is ice age. It's only at Antarctica and at the Arctic. But if you go backwards, why there was a ice age in the Europe, like where England is today, right? Or like Germany and Norway and Sweden, and also parts of North America, because that you can see it here. If you look at the North Pole here, so this chart. So right now, look at our physical, geographical North Pole, nothing to do with the astronomy North Pole and inclination. The geographical North Pole today is here, which is what we can say north of Greenland. Just to simply, this is a Greenland here, and we say north of Greenland. But per this Earth crust displacement theory, if you go back more than 12,000 years ago, somewhere 12,000, 17,000 or somewhere like that, the Earth, the North Pole was not north of Greenland, but actually it was in the Hudson Bay in Canada, what is today Canada. And when that happened, now you can start seeing that is the coldest spot, so to say, okay? And the Earth's core has not changed. It is the skin that has moved. Think of it like that, okay? And because of that, that is the coldest spot, so to say, which gets the least amount of light and dark and whatnot. And so now any water that or any snow that falls in the North America, Canada area, and also therefore, it's hard to show here, also the parts of Europe, it simply didn't go out. It never melted, and it just kept on accumulating. And as we know, the thickness was like a 4 kilometer. In North America, the thickness of the glacier, the ice was 4 kilometers. I mean, just imagine how thick that was. So that is explained. In fact, there is no good explanation why suddenly North America that time was under glaciers, but now it is not. Or why suddenly, in fact, very interestingly, by 10,000 years ago or so, or between say 14,000 to 10,000 years, suddenly the glaciers in North America melted. What is it that suddenly happened? Now there is this comet theory and whatnot, but there is, and that could be it. I'm not denying that. Let's not go there. But the simple fact, based on Earth crust displacement, and as I said, there is a sufficient evidence, is that simply the North Pole moved. And when the North Pole moves, it's a skin, right? The skin of the orange, the peel. So the South Pole will also move because the skin is the constant, So you can see that correspondingly what was happening. And I want to show you at that last point. So go to the South Pole. Right now, the South Pole is right. You can almost say the middle of, middle of Antarctica. But now go backwards. Let's say if you can see that, go backwards here, because that's how it came to today's spot. Go backwards more than 12,000. So think of Ramayana times 14,000 years ago. The South Pole was in the ocean, where the ocean right now, which also meant now this point here, Aditya, if you can see it, is now far away from this area or this area of Antarctica. So now that area in principle can be free from ice.
Correct.
Okay. So that's exactly what is happening. Because why it became free? Because the position of the South Pole was not right in the middle, but it was far away. So that's going back like say 12 Ramayana times, let's call it 14,000 years ago. And then if we go back further, then it would have been in this area. This is called a Ross Sea. And I'll not go into that today. Maybe we can just do the episode sometime only on these two slides. Correct. And I'll show you the supportive evidence, how fascinating it is. But just for our purposes, that would very perfectly explain that actually there was somebody possibly living on the Antarctica, the portions of Antarctica. Okay, just like we have people in extreme northern parts of Canada even today. Okay, like Alaska, people are staying there. Northwest Territories, people are living. Baffin Island, people are living. I mean, I've been to Baffin Island. And so it's not very comfortable conditions, but people are living there, just like Norway, Sweden, and Siberia. So similarly, that the people may be living, but they were there actually, as mentioned by Sugriva. So it's not a myth. To go back to your title of Sattology, it's not mythology. Actually, what Sugriva is saying, it matches for 14,000 years, based 14,000 years ago, based on the modern geological, geographical, oceanography, climatology data. So that's going all the way as far as Antarctica, going in the south direction. And with that, I will stop. And we can either stop, or if you have any questions, we can go over that.
No, it's a great point what you're explaining here because see, people have created all this imaginative views
Hmm.
to reject Ramayana and Mahabharata as a history. They have created, but it's you are able to extract so much from those Sanskrit shloka that you're redefining the atlas of the world
Hmm.
in a way, and it has been just blindly rejected like that.
Hmm.
That is what the worries us the most. Calling it a mythology means imaginary, fake folk stories, folklore,
Yeah.
and but now we are rediscovering the geography of the world, which is matching exactly
Yeah.
to the descriptions in Ramayana.
Correct. And then the Aditya ji, the question is, who is really dogmatic, right?
Yeah,
So, who cannot come out of their dogma,
dogma.
their a priori biases, even when a empirical, objectively testable, hard scientific evidence stares in their face, they still want to stick to their dogma.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common saying. You can wake up a
Ah,
sleeping man, but you cannot wake up a person who is acting to sleep.
correct.
And so there's so much of acting going on right now with the name of dogmas, and
Mhm.
and they call people who are fallen like us who are trying to prove history on the basis of Sanskrit text as something which is obsolete, and they won't teach all these things in regular universities also.
Correct. And I would say, even I'm not trying to prove anything, or you are also not trying to prove anything. We are just trying to find out the truth for ourselves, for everyone.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Wherever it takes us, that is our
Yeah,
Sanatana
principle.
Dharma,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We are just taking the text and trying to see what is whether it is right or wrong or where is it
Yeah.
taking us.
Right. Just like, there are some descriptions, and I'm very free to admit that I don't know where to show that particular Agastya Kshetra or a particular place, right? There is a place mentioned with certain kind of chandan, like sandalwood. I mean, South Africa has sandalwood, but it's not very clear. So I said it can be anywhere.
So thank you so much. It's a wonderful
Thank you.
presentation, and I think our viewers will love it a lot. And if you have any questions, do visit the YouTube videos. Will be uploaded. This video will be there on YouTube as well. And if you have any questions, send it to us. We'll get it answered. There are a lot of questions piled up, and I think one of the next sessions we should do is where we answer those questions.
Definitely, we will do that.
And then we have piled up those questions. So next time I'm going to come prepared with that question list. So viewers who have been you have been watching our videos and you have made certain requests, and I think Sugriva's Atlas Part 2 is going to answer many of those questions which you asked for the Sugriva Atlas Part 1. So this was India to Antarctica. So thank you so much, Nireshji. As usual, it's always a pleasure. For me, it's a fun, and for viewers also. If you have any questions, do ask us. Thank you.
All
Namaskar.
right. Thank you.